Hello, I'm Ian Henschke and welcome to State Line South Australia. Well, it's a report that's led to warnings of soaring food prices, social devastation and even riots. Late this afternoon, the Murray-Darling Basin Authority released its guide to its plan to ensure the long-term health of Australia's largest river system. This guide has been put out for public comment before the plan is finalised next year, and it certainly will get some comment. Amongst a raft of changes, it recommends an overall cut across the basin of up to 37%. To explain more about it, I spoke to the chair of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, Mike Taylor, earlier from Canberra. Well, Mike Taylor, thanks very much for your time. Now, we've been told that these cuts are going to be different for different areas. How does South Australia fare?
Ian, perhaps I could just go back a step. The Murray-Darling Basin Authority is charged with devising a new basin plan for consideration by the Australian community. It does that in two steps, as the Parliament has laid down, a draft basin plan and then a final plan. We've added additional step, which is called the guide, and it's so that we can in fact increase the consultation. The Parliament requires us to in fact protect key environmental assets, key ecosystems, both to maintain and restore them and to comply with international agreements. When we do that, the detailed scientific analysis that we've undertaken leads us to transfer very large volumes of water away from irrigation and human uses to the environment. And while the Act doesn't place great direction on this matter, we have actually gone out of our way to emphasise what are the social and economic impacts. In order to meet the water requirements for those environmental assets, very large volumes of water, some 3,000 to 4,000 gigalitres, need to be moved from irrigation communities back into the environment.
Now, we understand that, Mr Taylor, but could we just, because we've got limited time, could you please just explain to South Australian irrigators who say they're the most efficient water users in the basin that they haven't been rewarded for that hard work? How do you respond to that?
Well, very importantly, the plan actually is a plan for the future. It is undoubted that South Australian water users have had excellent stewardship, but also there has been good stewardship of water in other places in the basin. Importantly, the plan is looking to the future, and in drawing water, South Australian Murray River operators are treated equally with New South Wales operators and Victorian operators on the Murray.
Now, you're going to be having public meetings that will be open for comment. Does that mean that these cuts are negotiable?
Very importantly, the reductions are necessary in order to meet the environmental outcomes, which are about improving the wetlands and the lower lakes and the flow through the Murray mouth. In order to do that, we believe that the 3,000 to 4,000 range is what is required. It's possible that that can be reduced by works and measures, and it's certainly important that the science on which we've based these decisions is tested. That is what we're going out to do. We also want to invite comment on a whole range of the approaches we've taken.
Well, one of those issues that we should look at is that the recent audit figures showed that almost a quarter of the water used in the basin was groundwater. Now, the late Professor Peter Cullen said this water had to be cut too. So how have you addressed that in the plan?
And within the plan, we've actually made very major reductions on groundwater use. So we've done that right across each state in terms of its groundwater basins, which are quite individual, but very large reductions have been made in groundwater use.
Well, how do you deal with the next drought? Will there be a certain quantity of water going to the river that will be sacrosanct?
Very much so. I think the big change that comes with the new basin plan is where in the past, in a drought, priority was given for human uses over environmental uses. There is now an equal sharing of the implications of a drought.
Is it possible that these cuts simply don't go far enough?
Well, very importantly, we're required to develop the plan for the period to 2030, and its implementation starts in the period of a decade to there. Importantly, the plan starts in detail from about 2014, and all the planning we have done is to cover that period. What we haven't done is to cover the period beyond.
All right. In conclusion, when are we going to see the first real cut then?
Well, I think importantly, there is a three-stage process we have here. The guide goes out for consultation as of today. We'll be having many community consultations. We'll be meeting in Renmark next week, and later this month we'll be meeting both in Murray Bridge and in Adelaide, and we'll be meeting right across towns and communities across the basin. Feedback will then guide the way we develop the proposed basin plan, and we expect the basin plan to be concluded at the end of 2011 as required by the Act and the Intergovernmental Agreement. The implementation of the plan will then flow through water resource plans that each state government creates, and the majority of that will occur from 2014 onwards, although some earlier activity occurs in South Australia from 2012, particularly on groundwater.
Mr Taylor, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.